Hello, it's good to be with you all again. I actually have some time to get on here. I was told yesterday that up in Alpharetta, Georgia, that the stores, the restaurants are actually being allowed to serve takeout. So, my job entails a lot, but unfortunately, it was deemed by the general management of the store that my services, which was a great deal, are not going to be needed. And that usually turns out with them calling me in anyway. So as it stands right now, I'm paying attention to the news over here and keeping up with what's going on, staying as safe as possible, taking my daily regimen of vitamins and promoting my daily regimen of positivity and hope. And that's what I want to talk about today, hope. And I know I'm supposed to be on here continuing my 10-year in prison and all that, but right now, my individual situation. Um, is minimized by the global concern of the health, hope, and wellness of all sentient beings, all human beings. And so that is what I want to actually speak about today. So my message isn't going to be long; it's actually going to be short. My primary concern for coming on here today is to help instill hope in the hearts of us all, in the lives of us all, because I'm getting a lot of messages from people who are telling me that they have fears or concerns that the nation is going to begin to militarize our streets and that we are going to be placed under martial law. I don't know to what extent the nation is going to place the military on our streets. That's something that we aren't used to in this country. We've had those encounters during the civil rights movement and other situations where we remember the children that were integrating schools back in the day. The National Guard was actually called in on that. But right now, what we need is as much hope, joy, and love as possible instilled into our communities and into our lives, lest we become so fearful to where, like we've seen in movies, Mad Max and all that, when um, they were hoarding fuel, and how people become afraid and fearful. And when people become afraid and fearful, we know that human beings begin to get on the defensive and they become paranoid about one another. And then what you have is a lot of violence that's wreaked upon society out of fear, because the common individual actually doesn't have the wherewithal, or I shouldn't say the wherewithal. We don't have the information that we should be receiving from the government to an extent that we can understand exactly what's going on. Here's one thing that we can safely say. All right, the coronavirus is nothing new. If you remember, and I'm just briefing things, when HIV and AIDS became a concern back in Lord knows what it was, the early 80s, latter 70s, or whatever, it was called GRIDS, gay related immunodeficiency syndrome. And what we were told was that it primarily affected gay males white gay males. And that was because at that time, homophobia was a big fear. I even remember times when I was in junior high and high school when the term gay was actually used negatively with people whose sexual identity didn't coincide with the accepted norm at the time. And so a lot of hazing, before hazing became a big thing in the news, actually took place. And a lot of harm was done to children that went to school with us at the time, fights after school and stuff and things of that nature. A lot of emotional terror was actually wreaked upon people who tend not to live in accordance with what we societally accept as a given norm. And that's a big thing. Homophobic hatred is no different than racism. And they are terrorist activities. They are terroristic and should not be. But you grow, you get wiser, you get smarter with more information you get. and you tend to think better. And if you think better, you do better. And when you do better, you actually contribute to the benefit of our society as a universal human whole, a universal human whole. I've been seeing reports of Asians that have been uh, beaten, accused, and all that good stuff. No different than when the wars took place between this country and Afghanistan and Iraq, those things that took place, and how the fears of people in this country actually set in, and the hatred this country breeds. It's a wonderful country to be in. It's the freest country on the face of the planet. But with that freedom comes one heck of a price. And that price isn't I commend the soldiers that fight for this nation. I commend the first responders and people who defend and go out of their way every day to defend this nation and put their lives on the line, but I'm speaking to the common person right now. And what I want to tell you is, don't allow the fears that we are experiencing at this particular time to be the determining factor as to how you treat your fellow man. Don't do that. Because what tends to take place is that without a military presence, you begin to effectuate the change in the streets that would cause the government to want to send a police force out into the street, into the stores, to want to send the military into once quiet communities and all that, because our fears have taken over and we become suspect. We become suspect of our neighbor. If you remember Rwanda, that took place. And if you don't know, if you aren't old enough to know what the situation is or was in Rwanda, there's a movie you can watch called Hotel Rwanda, starring Don Cheadle, that was very good, and it was Hollywood's depiction of the fear that sets in with people and how they turn on each other, how people turn on each other. And in Rwanda, neighbors found themselves fighting for their lives, fearing for their lives because of their lack of understanding what was going on a governmental level. And I know that's kind of extreme to use it as an example. My primary purpose for even bringing that up is to curb the fears that are taking place here in America, because as we know, as free as we are, we live with a lot of prejudices, and that is a fact. And we cannot get away from that fact. We live with a lot of racial prejudices. We live with a lot of sexual prejudices, and we live with a lot of religious prejudices. These fires are fed from ignorance. That's what they're fed with. They're fed with ignorance because people have a lack of knowledge and they don't know. And when we don't know, then we revert to the one thing that is the primary stage for our survival, and that is fear. Believe it or not, we stand on fear for survival. All right, fear of getting burned by a stove, so we don't put our hand on it. We learn that that's hot, and we can't do that. A fear of death. So we drive carefully. For those of us that drive carefully, I drive carefully. I stay 2 cars behind the one in front of me, because if I got to stop or turn, I'm gonna stop and turn. I'm gonna stop and turn safely. But I think that we should be using social media not to instill more fear into the public, because each and every day dealing with this coronavirus, the information is changing. No different than the information changed back in the day when we first heard about the AIDS and HIV and all that good stuff. We were ignorant. We didn't know. We didn't know that it was a blood transmitted disease until later. So before we knew that, we lived in fear of other people that we assumed had this virus, and that the way the virus was transferred was the same way that this particular virus is transferred, from what we know right now. And it works like the common cold and the common flu. Key words: common. And when you're using the word common with a disease or a virus, what you're saying is that this is natural to the human construct. And when you are assuming that something is natural to the human construct, then what you have to ask yourself is, what strain does it actually come from? Well, it functions like something that we are extremely familiar with, and that is the cold and the flu, which brings up another kind of fear. And that fear is, if I can contract this like a person, like we would do with the common cold or flu, then what inoculation is on the way? Because this virus is now a part of our existence. It's not going to go away. We're going to find a way to do with it what we did with what we've done with tuberculosis and pneumonia, HIV, and what we have done with the common cold and common flu. We found a way to embrace them because we are dealing with a living organism. A virus is a living organism. It's not going to go away. We're going to find a way somehow to live with this. In doing so, the same compassion that we eventually came around to developing for people who are living with HIV and cancer, and we're going to have to find a way to begin now to live compassionately with people who are going to be affected by this. And I'm talking about people who are going to be affected with it directly. Now, those of us who will be indirectly affected are those of us who are going to be blessed enough to not contract this virus, but have to coexist with those who do. And we need to begin to practice that coexisting now and not wait until so much damage has been done because of our fears that we live in a state to where the military presence will be necessary. It's not necessary right now. All we have to do is remember to be compassionate and kind toward our fellow human being, toward our fellow man, toward our brothers and our sisters here upon the earth. Listen, the elderly need our care and compassion. They need our understanding during this time. The elderly need our care and compassion and understanding during this time. You live long enough and be blessed enough, you'll be that age as well. Your immune system will begin to break down as well. When that time comes, should you live long enough, you're going to want someone to care for you, to take care of you, to, bring you food, to look out for you, to be there for you. Put yourselves in the shoes of the person who is suffering and ask yourself, if it were me, what would I want? What would be my biggest desire? What would be my number one hope? And my number one hope would be that someone, and I don't care who they are, I don't care what their race is, I wouldn't even care if they were HIV positive. So long as they know how to care for themselves enough to be able to interact in my life should anything happen to me and care for me, should be your primary concern. Right now, we don't need to be putting out any more fears than are already coming out. We don't know. We have to watch the news. We have to learn. We have to pay attention, and we can't jump on, any and everything that people are posting out there online about the situation that we're going through right now with the coronavirus. This is a pandemic. This is international. Countries have been placed on lock because they don't know and they're trying. So we can't presuppose and we can't say that we know, because right now we do not know everything. We are learning as we go. And as we go, we're going to get smarter, because that's what we do as people, as human beings. We get smarter, we get wiser, and we do the same thing that the animals out there are doing, because we're taking their land from them. They restructure and find a way to coexist with us, even if that means distancing themselves further away from us. We have to find a way to coexist with love and compassion, and a continuance of putting hope out there in the world, joy out there in the world, serenity and peace, love and kindness, not hatred and fear, because it's going to create xenophobic attitudes. We're going to start saying that people of certain or racial classifications are totally responsible, and people of any particular racial classification is not totally responsible. All right, we can get as upset and angry with the Chinese as we want to get, but here's a bottom line to a superpower. A superpower does not stand on its own. A superpower works in conjunction with other superpowers, meaning that Just like we found out when Trump was trying to build the wall, that there were people over there in Mexico who was working for companies that were owned and operated by big business people over here. That's how you get your products and your clothes and your shoes and your radios and your vehicles and everything else that you like to drive. You look at most of the products that you enjoy. A lot of the parts of those products were manufactured in the same countries where we are stereotypically saying that people are responsible for the things that we are going through right now that we're so afraid of. We have to be wise. We have to be wise. Wisdom doesn't come with just jumping out there and being a reactionary. Wisdom comes with being patient and paying attention. All right. We have a great leader who is doing the best that he can. And what I mean by we have a great leader is that we have a platform that we stand on in this country. I've been seeing a lot of stuff with people downing America and all that good stuff too. Listen, this is the greatest and most powerful nation on the face of the planet. We have to be patient. We have to be patient. Yes, there's a chance that the government possibly knew about this virus before it even came out, but it's coming out now. And we have to be patient. The government has to do what they have to do. And I'm not speaking in behalf of the government. I've never been a government official, but I do understand the term panic in the public. I do understand that because I am a member of the public and I understand panic in the public. I do not want to live in my home fearful of anyone. I don't want to live in my neighborhood fearful of anyone. I don't want to disassociate myself with friends who have been nothing but good to me because I suspect, in line with my ignorance, that they may or may not be infected with something that could possibly harm me. And there's also the chance that they may be infected and it's not going to happen to me. Like with HIV again, we were ignorant. We thought you could catch it in a wind. And until we received more knowledge and became much more educated on HIV and AIDS, then we begin to open up a bit more, you know. But you got to consider the damage that's done to people before you actually get to that point. It doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to live with hatred and fear. We can live wisely. We need to be patient. We need to support each other. We need to support all the efforts that the government is making right now. And look, bottom line with that is you can get as upset as you want. If you're not sitting at your home actually creating a cure, then you have to do what the rest of us is doing. You have to patiently wait and pray and hope and stay positive and stay expectant that all the information that you're going to eventually need is going to come out. But let us not, repeat the past and begin to live in hatred that's only fueled by our fears. Let's live. We can, just like it's so easy for us to point the finger and say, oh, look, it was there. Oh, look, that person may have it. Oh, he coughed. What are you coughing for? Maybe you got a dry throat. You just need some water. Good grief. We can do better. We can do much better. We're in the year 2020 and our technology is springing us forward in ways that for the most part, many of us, even though we're living in that time, we're trying to catch up with it, which, technology is like time. It's not going to wait on you. It's not. This isn't going to be the first strain of a virus that's going to be detrimental to the human race. There's more coming. As we've went on, there have been more and more and more and more. This is how we come up with the medications and stuff that we have right now to fight the little things that have that attack our immune system now. Before mankind knew that cleansing themselves was one way to prevent the spread of disease or the birthing of certain diseases. And remember, viruses work just like we do. They are living organisms that want to survive. One way or another, we're going to have to coexist with this. We can coexist with it with hatred. We can coexist with it with love for one another. We do not have to hate each other. Fear, if it is not put in check, will breed hatred. All right? We don't want to get to that point because our world does not work that way anymore. You can point the finger at China all you want. We have Chinese people that live here. Are we to say that, well, all black people are subject to Ebola because we found it in black people over in Africa? Well, come on. We have to be smarter. We have to be wiser. We have to be patient, and we have to care for one another. We have to care for one another. Our world is such that it is one now. It is one big world, and we all one big human family now. And we have to become wise. We have enough that we're working on right now. New strains of viruses and diseases it's been our existing norm since many of us before we were even born. All right, we have the knowledge now that we have right now because the people that came before us looked into the future. Where in the future, they're going to need cures for this, or they're going to need inoculations for this, or they're going to need medications for this, or they're whatever. And in many instances, we get it wrong. ADHD and the whole Ritalin thing was just so outlandish that people were taking their good children, who were just normal children, and sticking them in a line to go get Ritalin because it was a common, normal thing in America that if little boys are energetic and not paying attention in school, that they have attention deficit disorder. And that's not to say that people aren't here in this world that actually have that issue. But you can't associate every single negative thing or every single bit of information that comes out and just embrace it and say, oh, goodness, maybe I should go stick my child in that line too. Maybe I should go get that shot in my arm too. Every shot isn't meant for everybody. Everyone does not need to take a flu shot. Only people with compromised or weakened immune systems or who already have pre-existing illnesses need that stuff. Those of you that are healthy, stay healthy. Stay healthy. How do they come up with an inoculation? They get strands of what it is that's affecting someone, and they inject that into them. And that comes after they've tested it on something like a horse. If you're healthy, be happy, and don't be afraid, and have some compassion in your heart for people who is not as fortunate as you to be able to live the healthy life that you're living right now. We don't have to inject more fear into a world that's already afraid. We can be wiser. We can do that. I believe in us, and I believe that we are better as a species upon the face of this planet. We're the caretakers for the earth, made in the image of God. We're going to get over this. And the best way for us to get over it is to be wise, be smart, pay attention to the warnings that they're giving us and stuff like that, and wait before we run out there. We're going to be all right. Y'all be blessed, be a blessing. And if I said anything to offend anybody, listen, that's never my intention. All right. It's never my intention. I love you, and I wish nothing less than the best for you. Take care of yourself, love on your family, and during this particular time right now, cultivate the compassion in your heart. Keep hope alive. Y'all be blessed. Be a blessing.